Good morning, viewing world. Happy day before Halloween day to everyone there. Welcome back to Jesse's Occupational Awareness Show. Today, we'll title this one Part 2 and the final part of why I resigned from TDCJ. So, let's not beat around the bush. Go ahead and get right into it. I did a previous video on events that led up to why I actually did resign, and the short answer was posted in that video as well. Today I'll paint more of a picture and actually get up into it. Now, when I first joined TDC, I had a lot of high hopes for the job. I watched all the lockup, lockdown, locked up abroad, behind bars. I watched all those shows, and while I know there's a lot of fiction involved in it, I didn't think it would be that tough. Yes, I knew I was walking into a prison, but I really didn't think it would be that bad. So I had a lot of high hopes going into it. While I was at the academy, one of the first things that clued me in, do a little backstory on that. The academy does pre-service and what was it called? In service, I think it was, not post service, obviously. I think it was called in service. That's where veteran COs that had been at a unit, I think annually, would either do in service training at their unit with their FTO or their training specialist, or they would go back to the academy depending on how far away they were, and they would do their in service training. Most industries do this. It was basically refresher to make sure that they were up to speed on the newest policies or policy changes, and they could potentially take some of that information back to their units. Well, I was in the break room in between classes, and a couple of the in service officers were in there just talking. I was in there having a cup of coffee, and I introduced myself to one of them. He introduced himself to me and said, well, you're just getting started out. And me being kind of a smartass, I looked down at the uniform and said, well, what gives it away? The fresh looking uniform? And he kind of chuckled. Where are you headed? Styles unit. And he just looked. He was like, oh, man. Well, I hope you make it your first month. And he said it not jokingly at all. And I said, well, I'm planning on making quite a few years and looking to put on sergeant, and I'd like to come back here and train the future cadets. And another guy sitting in the room was, whoa, slow down there, killer. Maybe you want to learn about being a CO before actually making plans like that, huh? I say, hey man, that's just the kind of path I want to take. He's like, well, I hope that works out for you. And they went back on to their conversation. I was like, all right. Kind of got a cold vibe almost. I get it. Ha ha. Laugh at the new guy, laugh at the rookie. And I felt a tap on my shoulder. Kind of jerked a little bit, looked back behind me. There was an older guy. He said, hey man. Kind of jerked his head over. Went over to him. He said, look, don't listen to these guys. If you want to be the fucking warden of a unit, you do that. When you get to where you're going, you said Styles, right? Yes, sir. Okay, when you get there, seek out your CO5s. They're going to be the ones to learn from. Watch out for those supervisors. Now, I didn't quite get it at the time. All right, appreciate it. Thanks a lot. So that was my first exposure to clashing with fellow COs. Conversation continued on, and another group of them had come in. We had kind of a longer break because this was later in the academy and the classes were kind of starting to get redundant, so we had longer break times. And these guys came in and they were talking about the Polunsky unit and how hot it was there. And one of them had a thermometer hanging up in the picket, and at one point it reached 110 degrees. And I'm listening to the guys talking about it, and I asked them, can I ask a question? Hold tight, rookie. Excuse me? And they looked at me. I was like, hey, man, name's Carter, CO3 Carter. I just wanted to ask you a question. What's up, man? I said, did you say 110 degrees in that picket? And they kind of looked around. Man, you don't even know. You ain't seen nothing yet. That's just the starting point. That you guys get acclimated to that? Like, no. But if you want to feed your family, then they kind of trailed back off into their conversation, and like, man, okay, rookies, veteran COs. I get it now. I didn't quite get it at the time. So, fast forward events. I'm at the unit. Time's gone by, and after that incident with the major in a turnout room that morning, and having to work the PC dorm, I was really starting to question, man, what's my future going to be like here? I wasn't interested in being a supervisor at that point. I had wanted to be a sergeant really bad. I like the chevrons. I like to look at them, the military aspect to it. But the desire to it had just gone at that point. I was coming in for my 4 days, doing the best that I could, going home. The 4 days would fly by at home. I was just kind of in a bad place. And for those of you veteran COs that made it your full time, shout out to you. Congratulations. Not all of us could do it. And I was really starting to question, man, can I really do this for the full time that I need to? I was a Coast Guard reservist at the time. I'm active duty now. And I was drilling at Sabine Pass, Station Sabine Pass, Texas. And an opportunity arose in January of 2015 for anybody that had certain qualifications and certifications. We could make the transition from reserve duty to active duty. A buddy of mine, I won't say his name on here, unless he comments on here and he wants me to. Anyway, he told me about the opportunity that was there. So on my 4 days off, I went in, did my drill duty for the weekend, read the message, and it was pretty straightforward. I had all the prerequisites that I needed. All I needed to do was contact the recruiting office and go through that process. Monday was the fourth of my 4 day off stretch, and I contacted the recruiter office there in Houston, and his name's Maddox. And I talked to him, told him who I was, told him my backstory. He said, man, we could fast track you all the way through, bring you right back on active duty, keep your pay grade, probably get you assigned where you wanted to. I said, yeah, I know, but I got this really good job working at TDCJ. He's like, whoa, he was from Texas. Whoa, TDC, you're doing that? Man, kudos to you. You more of a guy than me. I said, yeah, it's got its days. It's pretty tough. He's like, well, just think about it. I don't know how long this opportunity is going to last. It could last a month. It could last up to a year. It just depends on how many other guys are looking at this and are looking to make the jump and integrate, because there's only going to be so many billets. I said, roger that, OS1. Thanks. Appreciate it. That was his rank, operational specialist, first class. Roger that, OS1. Thanks for the information. And Tuesday, I went back to work. I remember that day quite well. There was a supervisor there. He was a sergeant. His last name was Briscoe, Sergeant Briscoe. Jones had gotten reassigned. I don't know why, but he was removed from ADSEG, put in general population. The only other time I saw him was when I was on utility, and I was helping fill in for 8 building. And he tried to talk to me a little bit, and I had nothing for him. The only thing I could think, he got put in 8 building, the unit probably hoping that he would quit. He probably did. I don't know. I haven't seen the guy since then. So Sergeant Briscoe had taken over for him. Briscoe was tough. He liked to pull OJT, not cadets. He liked to pull rookies off to the side while we were doing our pat downs on inmates and try to give us classes. He would pat another CO down about how to properly do it, while the damn offenders could see us doing that and just giving them ammo, making it look like we don't know what we're doing. The guy probably had good intentions, but that was not the right time or place to try to do that. You don't correct another boss in front of the officers unless there's just something egregiously going on, i.e., he's beating one down with a beam tool or rapidly slamming his hand in the food slot. Okay, that's something else. But something like a pat down, no. You can wait till you're away from the public eye and then have a class about that. This guy didn't seem to get that concept. Me and Campbell were working D dorm, and it's hard for me to paint a picture about what it looks like in there. It was a long tier stairwell, long tier up above here. Day room was behind us. Day room was just a big set of bars. There was a table not a table, a stainless steel table with a seat bolted to it, and there was a pull-up bar in there. And inmate could run around, jog, do some pull-ups, just get out of the cell for a little while. Well, when you got to cell 12, 13, and 14, if you were on 11 all the way down, you had some freedom of movement. You could move around behind you. Please try to picture what I'm doing. I know y'all don't know, and I can't post pictures because there are none in there. I'm trying my best. When you were in 12, 13, and 14, when you were in that vicinity, the bars were right behind you. You could turn, put your hand on the cell bars, put your hand on the day room bars. You couldn't go anywhere. Inmate that was in cell 14, he was a Hispanic guy. I'm not sure which STG he was in. We had some trouble with him previously. He had a grudge on Campbell, not sure what it was, and something from the past. All these guys hated us. And I had a few problems with the guy before. One day he would be seemingly I know I keep cutting myself off. These guys they're on psych meds. And pill nurse would pass out just cocktails to these guys. So if they got off their meds, here you go. They were off the chain. And where was I? Anyway, the guy was in cell 14, and we were going down and we were serving trays. Okay, well, I had popped his food slot, and the guy over in cell 13 started doing something really stupid, started beating, banging, hollering, and I remember it now. I didn't at the time. I had put the tray in his slot, and he took it. And I went over to cell 13. Campbell was talking to the guy. He's beating and banging, hollering. Now that we're talking about it, he was a diet tray. And he didn't want the diet tray that day. He wanted what was on the regular one. Very common occurrence. So we're trying to talk the guy out, get his hand out of the slot. It's what's called jacking the food slot. They stick their hand out through the food slot. You can't slam the slot. You can't kick their hand. You got to try to talk them out of it. Because we're only supposed to have one food slot open at a time. And they knew that when they did that, per policy, we weren't supposed to move on and go on from there. So it was a way to interrupt our operations. Usually they wanted to see a supervisor, or they just wanted to be a fucking turd. So we were talking this guy out, and we finally get that one settled up. And I remember looking over at cell 14, and you could kind of see the guy's face pressed up against the chicken wire. It's like, hey man, did you get your tray? He smiled. No, I ain't got no tray. And I started to hand him another one. And Campbell started yelling at me. Hey, motherfucker, you already gave him a tray. You don't ever trust what an inmate says to you. That motherfucker's lying to you. And then at that point, he starts yelling at Campbell. And now Campbell's yelling at him. He's yelling back and forth, yada, yada. Like, all right, whatever, man. Fuck this. I picked up the food carrier, and I started walking off. And I heard what would sound like plastic slamming up against concrete, be the best way I could describe it. And when I turned around and looked, there was a tray laying on the floor, and Campbell had food on him. The guy had taken that tray, and he'd thrown it out the food slot. Okay, cool. Well, Campbell had gone over, he slammed his tray shut. I think the guy had his hand in it a little bit, and Slammed it shut with his hand in it. All right, cool. So, Campbell, if you're watching this, and if I'm messing up some of the events, I'm sorry. This is how I remember it and how I recall it. All right, so we go back to doing our thing. Cool, good. I go into picket and I write him up for attempted assault on an officer with a weapon. It's kind of a chicken shit charge. It was a food tray, but anything that these guys could do, man, if you could get a charge on them for it, I was there to do it. I loved writing cases. So I wrote him up for that. Picket boss notifies it over the radio. Briscoe comes and gets the damn paperwork. They weren't supposed to do the investigation while we were still on shift. It was supposed to be a different supervisor that would do it, different set of eyes. That way it was also supposed to cut down on some of the reprisal. Well, while we're moving around doing our trays, Briscoe goes over, talks to the guy about the incident. I wasn't there. I don't know what was said, what was done. Now this guy knows he's facing a pretty hefty charge. Attempted assault with a weapon was one of the higher up ones there. It was a little bit below escape, which was the highest one they could get. We go to slop trays, and when we get him back around the area, Campbell says, "Hey, don't even go over to his cell, man. He's already pissed off. He probably knows you wrote him up. We ain't even gonna go. He can keep that fucking tray." Cool, sounds good. I'm pushing the garbage can on its wheels, and I get over to number 12, and he hands me his tray. Get over to 13, pops his slot, passes his tray out. The guy either knew we weren't going to or what, but I remember turning around and pushing the cart, and I heard the sound of the food slot dropping. If it dropped, it would kind of rattle a little bit, metal on metal banging. These guys, it was called not jacking the slot. That was when they took it. I don't remember what the term was, but they could manipulate that slot. It was a plunger that pressed up, and when you stuck your bean tool in and you lifted up, it moved it out of the way, and that's what would let the food slot drop. Well, these guys would find ways to stuff paper, clothing, something up in there where the lock wouldn't actually engage. It would close on top of that, and the slot would be pinned in place, but they could push it open from inside their cell. And that's what this guy had done. Well, I had turned around, and I heard that pop open, and I heard, "Hey, fucking Carter!" Head turned, and here it came. Arm came out, it flung. He had some kind of a cup, and I don't know what was in it. Shit, piss, blood, nut, whatever he had made up, threw it all over. Hit the side of me. So my head was turned like this, hit the side of me, it hit my face. And I did what they say you're going to do in the academy. I didn't think I would. What you should do at that point is get out of the way. I looked down at myself. Instead of moving and getting out of the way, I looked down at myself. I put my hand where my pepper spray holder was, and I looked back at the cell, and here he came with a second one. Arm comes out. I go to back up, and I bang into them damn day room doors. I didn't have anywhere to go. I could have gone to the left, but where your head is at the time. So I hit the day room doors, kind of bounced off that, followed up with a second one. Man, that shit got in my eyes. It burned. It stunk. It was like getting hit with, I don't know, just every kind of concoction. Chunking was what they called it back then. And everyone, the whole fucking pod erupted. Everyone beating, banging, hollering, yelling. Okay, here we go. All right. Called the supervisor, assault on an officer. I'm going to write him his ass another charge. So I still got all this, I wiped as much of it off of me as I could, but it was stained all over my vest, and fucking eye was burning, and all just couldn't really open it. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't find out till later on. Both of them were just red and puffed up, and just all I could smell was that nasty ass funk that was all over me. Went back to the picket, asked for another charge sheet, started writing him a charge for assault on an officer. Well, the radio had gone out, assault on an officer, cool. Lieutenant Raymond Briscoe responded. They came in there, and the whole place is just a concert hall because they knew an officer had been gotten at, and I wasn't particularly popular. Yeah, whatever. They came over. Raymond asked me, "Was I all right? I'm good, LT. Just gonna finish writing up this charge." He's like, "All right. We're gonna hold off on doing the rest of today's activities." Man, we're gonna lock the pod down. We're already done, LT. We done moved everybody around. We were just finishing up with the dinner trays. Cool. Briscoe came over to me. You good, Carter? I remember looking at him. It's like, I don't get this, man. What the fuck's wrong with these guys? He said, "Hey, man, it's SIG." That's all he had to say. That's really all that was needed to be said. At that point, I had pretty much made up in my mind, I'm done. What made it difficult, after that conversation, let me be clear. After that conversation, I started thinking about the Coast Guard. I had an out. I wasn't stuck in that place. I didn't have to go back there. I knew that I could do something else. Okay? A lot of veteran guys, they get caught up in that career and they don't have anything else that they can do. Flame on me all you want to. They can't do anything else. They don't have no other skills, no other trades. Shout out to you for manning those walls. That's needed, but that's where their skill set lies. I had other skill sets. I had been law enforcement. I had been military. I was working corrections at the time. And I just didn't think I could do it anymore. I know this is going to get me some heat, whatever. I called in sick the next 3 days. I wasn't, but I called it in anyway. That was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. On Thursday, I called the recruiter back. I said, "I'm ready to start this process. What do you need out of me?" I'm not going to go into it on this video, this channel right here, but I started the process for active duty. That was in January. It took all the way up until April for me to officially get my orders. I worked up until March, and at that point, I couldn't do it anymore. Every day coming in, every hour felt like a day. So, come March, I resigned. I'd saved up a bunch of money. I took a month off. I was looking around at different kind of temp jobs that I could do just to fill in the time before it was time to go back on active duty. And in late April, I got my orders. Bosun mate, second class, tactical coxswain, Station Sabine, Sabine Pass, Texas. Got everything that I wanted. Put in my resignation notice. Went in. I had to turn in everything that had been issued state-wise to me: uniforms, jacket, the belt. That was about all they really gave you. And at that point, you get to have an outgoing brief with the warden. Why are you leaving us? Why aren't you here? Some people didn't do it. I took the opportunity to really get into it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see one of the wardens. I went into the office. I was in civilian clothes, and I had the uniforms on some hangers. And I went in and I told the individuals in the security office, "Hey, I got my outgoing brief with the warden. Here's my state ID. Here's my uniforms." And one lady said, "Where are you going, Mr. Carter?" "I'm going back on active duty. Coast Guard." "Oh, you getting out of here?" "Yes, ma'am, I am." And you could kind of feel not the jealousy, but just man, I'm glad this guy's got something else to do. Went on through the area, turned in my uniforms to admin there at the warden's office, and I was waiting outside. And this major, who I didn't really know, he worked in general population. Actually, I don't know if he might have been general population. Don't know his name. That's a very common occurrence on this channel. He was the one that I did my outgoing brief. And I'd filled out my paperwork, had it on the desk. He picked it up, read it, looked up at me, and in the most official kind of voice was like, "Well, why are you leaving us?" And I said, "Sir, I can't do this job anymore." And I don't know if it was the emotion in my voice or what. I wasn't going to cry, nothing like that. Just, I guess, the tone of my voice. Said, "Well, what do you mean?" It's like, "Man, this place is fucking hell. This is absolute hell on earth. I, I don't know how anybody could work here." And I told stories of incidences that had happened. The fight with Captain Boykins, the clashes that I had had with senior COs, the situation with the female major calling us out, the getting chunked on. And the guy kind of sat back in his chair and kind of got comfortable, like he was really interested in what I was saying. And I said, "I've requested transfers for night shift. I've requested transfers to general population. I've requested transfers to a different unit, and none of it is happening." CO3, I've been here just under 3 years now. I've requested transfers to the shakedown team. I even offered to go get my Class B license so I could get into offender transport. I wanted out of segregation, and you guys wouldn't do anything for me. And he said, "I wish you would have come to me a week ago about this." "I don't even know you. How am I supposed to do that? I filled out all the paperwork. Why aren't y'all looking at any of this or listening to any of us?" He said, "Well, you're not the only one that's trying to get out of here right now. That's about all I can say. Where are you headed from here? That ain't even none of your concern." I could have told him, but at that point I was kind of in a bad mood, neurotic, as one of the viewers commented about me. Yeah, I guess I am. Didn't tell him. Just said, that's got nothing to do with you." He stood up. I stood up. We shook hands. Said, "Well, good luck to you." It was cold that day. It was dark. It was dreary. Clouds. It was March, Texas. Turned around, walked out, didn't look back, drove away, didn't even look in my rearview mirror. I remember getting midway down the road. When I say midway down the road, I mean up the highway toward I-10, headed eastbound, getting ready to go back home. And phone rang, looked at it. It was the recruiter. Picked up the phone. "Hey, what's going on, OS1? Hey, man, just want to let you know your orders are coming through. It looks like you're going to get Station Sabine like you wanted." It's almost like it was meant to be. I thanked him, hung up the phone, teared up a little bit. I was just so happy, so ecstatic. I was moving on with the next step of my life. And that was it. That was my last day at the Styles. And that was how it ended. Basically, I probably would have left even if I didn't have an opportunity. I don't know, because I mean, hindsight is 2020. But looking back then, I needed my job, I needed my paycheck, and I made the right decision. I spent the last 5 years at Station Sabine, and now I'm here in Hampton, Virginia. I'm an instructor at Training Center Yorktown. I'm going to finish out my career. I'll have a full 20-year retirement from the military, and there we go. Or I could have stayed there at the Styles, and there's no telling what would have happened after that. Well, that's the end of this one, folks. This doesn't close out this channel at all. I still have a lot of stories that I want to tell about my experiences in TDC. I'm enjoying the comments that some of the veteran officers are putting on there. I'm still here for questions for anybody at all. If you got questions about the academy, a popular one seems to be, how is the PAT? The physical agility test. You have to run it. You have to attempt it, but nobody fails it. Write that down. Everyone, thanks for watching this. Man, I appreciate every single one of you. Blow up with comments if you want to. I don't care if they're good or bad. I like seeing them all. Everyone, take care of yourselves. Stay safe. We're still in this pandemic. Man, everyone take care. Enjoy your weekend. And happy Halloween to you.